Hey there, it's Virna Lisa here on VL Speaks. This is episode 43. Topic is grit and resilience. Because let's face it, in this day and age, you need to have both. So let's start with the definition. Grit means you've got courage, you've got pluck, you have resolve to get things done, and you have strength of character. Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't feel fear, right? That you want to get something done and you have some fear about it. That's normal. It means that you are able to overcome it. And empirically speaking, I think that it also requires some discernment. Like, you're not going around half cocked like, I'm a courageous person, I'm just going to do the first thing that comes to mind, thinking that it's the brave thing to do. No, to have courage, you've got to be able to take a beat and really suss out what's going on around you. You have to be thoughtful in order to execute in a courageous way. Resilience, this is the ability to withstand adversity. And also, how quickly do you, maybe not even quickly, but do you have the ability to overcome difficulties? You know, you've got toughness, you're adaptable, you're self-reliant. There's a lot of things that go into resilience. And what I like is that these two work together. Resilience, it doesn't mean that you're not sad, okay? Or maybe feeling down or angry or frustrated. Those are normal human feelings. The idea with resilience is that you know that you've got what it takes at some point. You're going to be able to figure this out, and you're going to be able to deal with the situation with some type of creativity and positive attitude. And I like to say, more than hope, faith, that things can get resolved, that you can work through this. And that means that in order to know whether or not you have any of these qualities, is you've got to be able to take the time to reflect on who you are. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Can you allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to admit these things like fear and maybe hopelessness? And also, we may have to ask for help in certain situations. And being vulnerable like that doesn't mean that you're any less courageous. Remember, you got to have some wisdom and discernment to be courageous. So sometimes you got to be able to step back and humble enough to say, hey, I may need help with this. And it doesn't mean that just because you have grit and resilience that you're not going to be blindsided by things. I mean, everyone's human. And sometimes when we're blindsided is when we find ourselves really kind of unmoored, like, oh no, what now? Well, that means you've got to be able to take a step back and say, okay, do you have to take responsibility for why you're in the situation that you're in? Are you at fault in any way? If you're running away from adversity, it's very hard to deal, or rather develop, resiliency, because you're not really looking at things and looking at them straight on and handling them. That does take some skill, and that's why it's okay to be vulnerable in these situations when you're trying to assess, or if you're trying to move through something, some kind of adversity. So please take that into account, because we're all human and we've all got our weaknesses and we all have room for improvement. It also means that we're not staying in a place where if something did happen, we were blindsided and maybe it was not your fault, that you can say, okay, this happened. Now what? And do your best not to fall in a blame game kind of situation where you're blaming other people for what went wrong and then you just get stuck there. You've got to find a way to move past it. But running from it and blaming other people actually weakens you. It does not increase your resilience or your courage, your grit. And also, please remember that staying in a place of victimhood also weakens you. If it was something really bad that affected your well-being, you're going to have to forgive at some point. I think that that is a sign also of courage. right? What is that? And I forget who says it, but to err is human, but to forgive is divine. And that really bolsters you, believe it or not. Forgiving, it's for you. So just remember that adversity may come to you, but you've got to find a way to forgive if it's on someone else, that they're doing something deliberately or unbeknownst to them, who knows? The most important thing is that we not stay in a place of victimhood when things do happen, because it doesn't help us move forward. And I think about what's going on in the world, and I see some of these people that are dealing with really difficult situations, and yet they are resourceful and they're finding ways to be fed, to get others fed, you know, and think about solutions, going solution oriented. And once you start to reevaluate yourself, coming back to you, you're going to see, if you're honest with yourself, that you're going to assess what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Okay, this is an important part of resilience. And we want to use our strengths, if at all possible, to help us overcome our weaknesses. And one of the ways that you can do this is by journaling, writing these things down. Be honest with yourself. Oh, this is where you're strong. This is where you're weak. This is where you need room for improvement. Being vulnerable with yourself, being honest with yourself, being kind with yourself in the process of seeing where you are. Important stuff to do. We can't really get away from it, right? If we don't like the way things are in our lives, we want to become stronger people and able to achieve the things that we want to do, we have to think about, what do you want from life? We all do. What do you want from life? Are you willing to do what it takes? Do you have the resiliency and the adaptability to do the things that you want to do? This relates to all life, all the things that we do, and there's so much for us to do. It's a never-ending story, right? And are you willing to change? Because experience, whatever those setbacks are, where you get blind spotted, those experiences provide us with the opportunity to learn and grow. And that is your decision, whether you want to grow, whether you want to become stronger and more courageous, creative, and resilient. These are personal choices that everyone makes every day. And it will make us better to decide to grow and change and increase our capabilities in life. But we really can only do that if we are focused on what it is that we want to change and how we want to change it. And let's face it, if you want to do any of those things, there are tons of books out on the market, tons of self-help books, plenty of ways to gain access to things, to get to things and material and to people as well to help us move forward. But again, be kind with yourself in this process. This is not about beating yourself up. And also being kind and paired with discernment and honesty. These things work together in recovering from setbacks, which we all have. And this is also a way of keeping ourselves accountable, keeping ourselves responsible to ourselves and the things that we say that we want to change. And we remember why we care about this. Why do you care about being courageous and resilient? Because when things get difficult, you can always fall back at that and go, that's right. I know why I'm here. I know what I'm doing. The good thing is that you're not alone. None of us are alone in this process. We're all going through this together. I know sometimes we feel like we're alone, and that's a good time to be vulnerable and reach out to someone, to talk to someone that knows better than you or knows you pretty well and can be an encouraging factor. You may be that person for someone else. That's why it's important that you build your community with a level of being conscious of what you're doing and how you're doing it and who you're attracting into your inner circle. Especially now with everything that's going on in the world, this is not a world to be alone in. We must have community. We must create inner circles where we know that we feel safe to be ourselves and also know that these people are trustworthy. They trust you. Trust is a big thing. If you are surrounded by people that you know behave in an untrustworthy manner with other people, trust that eventually that's going to come around to you. And because you love yourself, you're going to pay attention to this kind of stuff because we do want people that we can trust and that believe in us and bring out the best in us, and we bring out the best in them. We got to keep these standards high. Really, we do. In order to develop new habits and reinforce new habits, we need to be in company of people that are also striving to do the same thing. And then you find yourself attracting more of who you are. And it doesn't have to be a big circle. It's just got to be really good quality. I think it's a call to humanity right now. Sometimes if I watch the news and I see what's going on, I can be moved to tears. And I realize I can't watch it too much because then it makes me feel hopeless because I'm not in that part of the world. What can I do? But I can start here, where I am, starting locally. That can be done. That can be done. And I believe we should all strive to do it because now's the time. There's no time to waste. Everybody's got to get on this or else it seems dismal. Right? And remember, resilience gives you that sense of hope and faith, and courage gives you the ability to act accordingly and skillfully. We want to act skillfully with some wisdom, using that higher mind that I've talked about before. And I think that if you have a conscience, if you're connected to your conscience, you start to act from that place. Right? But it's all about getting connected to who you are. So you start locally, you start with your community, you start with your family, you start with the people that you interact with in work. Think about being of service. Being of service, and I'm not saying that you just let people walk all over you and you just say yes to everything. Again, discernment when you're thinking about things, but think about more than yourself. It's not just all about you. Yes, it starts with you. However, when we go out into the world, is how you behave meaningful to the other person that you're interacting with? Are you kind? Are you considerate? Are you conscious of your behavior and how it can impact another person? This is really important. And if there's a bunch of divisiveness around you due to people's weak and fragile egos, so they wind up saying and doing things that are just seem to you to be mindless, just step away from those things. It's not about placing blame or shame or any of those things. Useless. Don't go there. It zaps you of your energy. We were born, each one of us, we have a purpose for being here. And that's what's important. And with everything that is going on in this world, we must think about how we are contributing to the solutions. Are we solutions oriented, or is everybody just going to stand around pointing fingers going, you, bad, 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 good, bad, bad? That's not what courageousness is about. Yes, sometimes you need to speak out when you see something that's wrong. However, are you going to stay in that place screaming on the top of your lungs about how everybody else is doing something wrong? Focus on yourself and what you are contributing to the world, because humanity requires it. This is a time to be fully conscious of who you are, and it does take grit and resilience to live in this world and live in it skillfully. So be mindful of all the things that I mentioned, because it's worth doing, and that should be motivating enough for you. Don't you think? All right. So we all got work to do, right? So get to work, stay cool. It's going to be a long summer. I'm glad that you stopped in. I'm glad that I was able to share this with you. I had to really boil it down and condense it to what was most important. And in light of everything that we're going through, I think that this is the time. Now is the time. Alrighty. Thanks for stopping in. Please feel free to leave comments if you'd like to, and be sure to be respectful. And thank you for dropping in. Until next time. Ciao.